Welcome to Spirits Podcast, episode 84, Talking Badgers with Adal Rifai.
Yeah, I'm very excited for this episode for a number of reasons. Mostly that Adal is a wonderful human being, and we were really, really lucky to have him on the show.
Yeah, Julia did some excellent work in being like, wait, what if we talked about mythology with Adal Rifai? And I was like, damn, yes, let's do it. We really, really love the shows that he's on. We talk a little bit about it in the actual episode, but this is a really cool mix, I think, of like the mythology of a project that a person does and also like their personal stories. So I think, Julia, you did a really great job preparing for this one.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm very excited for y'all to hear it. But first, we got to talk about our new patrons.
Hey, hi, hello. Welcome to Leanne, Janessa, Amara, Rachel, Katrina, Shelby, Joe, and Darcy.
Yeah, welcome. Your dads aren't hunger ghosts, but I think you're going to find them interesting anyway.
And thank you so much to the people who truly helped make this show happen, talking animals and all. Our supporting producer level patrons, Philip, Julie, Christina, Josh, Eeyore, Neil, Jessica, Maria, Ryan, Phil Fresh, and Deborah, as well as our legend level patrons, Sandra, Audra, Mercedes, Jack, Marie, Ashley Marie, Leanne, and Cassie.
Thank you all so much. You are wonderful human beings, and we appreciate you every single goddamn day.
We truly, truly do. We also appreciate Shaker and Spoon, which is our sponsor for this week. They are a monthly cocktail subscription box that you can get in on the fun at shakerandspoon.com/spirits. But we'll tell you more about that later.
Yeah, we'll get there eventually.
Got to get through some good badger lore first.
Very important. I don't remember what we were drinking for this one, but I can tell you later about the Shaker and Spoon cocktail that I made while we were recording this. But we'll get there.
Yeah, I never remember anything that we talk about or
Correct.
drink or do during episodes. So, you know, it's actually pretty fun because I get to enjoy the show as a listener and be like, yo, mermaids are great. And the person in the episode happens to also sound like me. So, you know, it's all good.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
This is truly an action-filled and exciting episode, so we're going to let you get right to it. This is Spirits Podcast, episode 84, Talking Badgers with Adal Rifai.
So, listeners, this week we are joined by a very special guest. I am very excited, if you cannot tell from my voice and the shakiness of it. We are joined by Adal Rifai of Hello from the Magic Tavern. And
hello.
Welcome, Adal. Hi. How's it going?
Thank you so much for having me.
It's absolutely our pleasure. For our listeners that don't know what Hello from the Magic Tavern is, it is
I was told all of your listeners know what Hello from the Magic Tavern is.
Oh, damn. Okay.
Oh, no.
I outed myself.
What have we done?
How embarrassing
for our listeners
you.
who have been living under a rock, Hello from the Magic Tavern is, I want to say, like an improv audio drama, I suppose, about a magical land that a man fell through a portal behind a Burger King into and is now podcasting from this magical land. Is that about right? That's about it.
That about wraps it up, yep.
All right, cool.
That's better than what Arnie does.
It's usually better than what Arnie does.
I feel like whenever I explain, like when people talk to me and they're like, what do you do? And I'm like, I'm a podcaster. And they're like, what's the podcast you do? And I launch into like that spiel. I feel like 90% of the times like their eyes glaze over and are just like, oh,
no.
that's cute. Like, good for you. And I'm like, I'm so sorry.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I swear people listen to it. That's what I say to my mom every time I tell her I'm doing a new project.
We're like actually very famous, ma'am.
I kind of wanted to just start with, we're going to get into like some actual spiritsy storytelling later, but I kind of want to start with the idea of, hey, how do you make a magical world? Most of the show is improvised, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right?
Yeah, 99.9% of it is improvised. I think every 10 episodes or so, we'll have something where we're like, let's try and actively reference the Dark Lord is having a birthday coming up. So we'll set, every once in a while, we'll set sort of like goals to hit.
Sure.
But it's never, even then, it's not even like a script. It's just like, at some point, can you mention this? Or like, at some point, can you get me to this place or something?
Like an anchor.
Like
you know,
yeah,
like
absolutely.
a thing that we have to, you know, at some point wrap this line around.
Absolutely. Yep. That's the sort of flow of it or structure of it.
So I'm interested kind of because, you know, as a mythology and folklore podcast, obviously you guys really dig into a lot of mythology and folklore that isn't Foon specific, like manticores and fairies and hungry ghosts and all that kind of thing. So I'm curious how much like actual research kind of goes into the world building, either by you three main cast or the guests that are coming on and performing with you. I'm curious as to how much world building is specific and how much is just kind of made on the fly.
I think it's almost all made up on the fly. I mean, I'm definitely, like, my interests are in the supernatural and folklore and mythology and all that jazz. So I'm very much influenced by what I consume. Mm-hmm. So if I'm reading a specific book on, like I read, have you ever read the Jim Butcher Dresden Files series?
Amanda loves the Dresden Files.
Yeah, we reference it often, and listeners are always like, oh my God, I didn't know anybody else liked these books. It's very exciting.
They're so good. So I was flying through those, and every once in a while, like, they have the Malkin cat, like the great big cat that's almost like sinister later in the series. So when I was reading that book and it referenced the Malkin cats, that kind of stuck in my craw. And then as we were recording, we were trying to think up ways to, like, get a message out or something. And I was like, oh, I talked to the Malkins and they're coming. So I think it's not, we never plan to put forth these ideas or lores or myths, but I think whatever's in our head kind of will tumble out when shook. So that's how we kind of approach it. Again, if we have something that we actively want to inject into the show, we'll talk about it briefly and make sure that gets done, but that's few and far between. But normally it's just, we just kind of make up something on the fly. And a lot of times, obviously, if you listen to the show, it's very much influenced by the real world or, our world. So we definitely have referenced, like, instead of Slender Man, I think we had like Skinny Boy or whatever it was. So we have a lot of analogous or parallel myths and lores.
You guys do a great job with that, for sure. Since you mentioned it, and since this is a mythology, folklore, urban legends podcast, are there particular stories that you're usually drawn to, or like what are some of your go-to favorite stories when it comes to that kind of stuff?
I feel like one of the most formative things in my life, besides the movie Beetlejuice, was when I was a kid. My mom got me a book that she probably should not have gotten me, but it was Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark.
Oh, yes.
We had like 6 of those in our elementary school library. Julia and I grew up together. And I remember we would basically just like cycle through, which of us was checking out that book at a given time.
Yeah, you would get in trouble if you took it out too many times, which
so we just sprayed it off.
They'd be like, legally, we have to alert the authorities because that's a very dark book.
Mm-hmm. The school psychologist is waiting.
Yeah. But
probably would have been helpful, but yeah.
But it's a collection of, I think there's 3 books, or the ones I have, it's 3. But it's Alvin Schwartz is the author, and then even more sort of potent or powerful are the drawings by Stephen Gamble.
Oh, they're insane.
Which at some point I remember like 10 years ago, they re-released the books without his illustrations because they were too terrifying, so they like toned it down. And I remember seeing like the cartoonish drawings that whoever stepped in to fill his shoes did, and it's like disgusting.
Oh man, that like bee hair woman, like the beehive that is actually a beehive hairdo. I remember, like I could reproduce that right now. It was so striking to me.
For me, it's the spider coming out of the woman's cheek. That's the one that strikes me.
Yeah, that's the other one.
In her cheek. And, my favorite is probably Harold, which is the scarecrow that comes to life and like skins the owner on the farm. Mm-hmm. Those books, I got that book maybe when I was 7 or 8. So I remember at an early age, just those illustrations being like emblazoned in the back of my eyelids, like whenever I closed my eyes, just seeing those and being terrified. Mm-hmm. But it also led to like my current proclivities, which is like, again, being obsessed with like the supernatural or the weird or oddities or anything like that. So I feel like those books were like the most formative of media that I consumed as a child. So that's probably my recommendation.
Nice.
For me, those books really go hand in hand with the kinds of stories that we would tell each other at sleepovers, and at summer camp. Were there any like urban legend type stories that you guys told each other either as younger kids or like stuff in high school that was probably dangerous that y'all did anyway to like impress each other?
So I went to high school. I moved around a bit as a kid, but we settled in Kewanee, Illinois, which is just like a small farm town. It's the hog capital of the world, which is not a claim to fame. They used to
usually.
Every year, they have a festival called Hog Days, which they still have. And every year they used to crown a Hog King and Hog Queen. Which was
the ugliest hog, the hogwort.
Which was not necessarily coveted by the young men and women in town.
No, you wouldn't think so.
Yeah. But we had in high school, in junior high and high school, there was a legend of Deer Man. So in our local woods, which I think was like Johnson Sock Trail and another wooded area preserve, there was a legend that there was a deer man who was deer on top, man on bottom.
Oh no.
So we used to go out into the woods and would like hang out there after dark and like call for the deer man, or like somebody would run, somebody would excuse themselves and then make noises in the woods to scare others or whatever that is. So we definitely had a lot of fun with the local lore of Deer Man, which I think is pretty fun.
I love a good reverse centaur urban legend.
Absolutely. I would love it if it was man deer and it was just like top part was a man, bottom half was a deer, and it's just like, oh, you're just a dude.
You're just a dude.
You're just a disfigured man. Like, you're not scary.
That's there's a couple of Native American folklore stories about the deer woman who goes to parties and seduces men and then like gets them into accidents. So that seems very much kind of inspired maybe from that area.
What kind of accidents would she get them into? Like,
usually she'll like, so if she's trying to seduce someone and they basically tell her no, is they're driving away from the party, she'll just appear and cause them to crash.
Oh, like a deer would.
Yeah, like a deer.
Exactly.
Very resourceful.
Except a woman, like the like the deer man, like the deer woman.
And it's woman, when she kind of appears as a human, it's woman on top, and then she kind of like moves her skirt and it's deer hooves, which normally I find the like human animal mashups to be pretty terrifying, but that one I think is kind of adorable.
Yeah, it's like,
Kind of cute.
Like
It's kind of
delicate
cute
ankles.
despite the like almost murder that goes on there.
Yeah.
And when she appears to a guy, she'll give her name as Jane Doe.
Ooh.
How did I not make that joke in that episode? Damn it.
Damn. Lost opportunity.
Oh, God. I know you guys do, as part of a spin-off series for Hello from the Magic Tavern, you do Offices and Bosses, which is the fantasy version of Dungeons and Dragons. Did you guys play a lot of Dungeons and Dragons as kids, or is that something you picked up later in life, or?
I never did, because I was wildly popular.
Checks out.
I think Matt maybe did. I don't believe Arnie did. But I definitely, maybe like 2.5 years ago, I started doing a campaign with some friends, a lot of people who have been on the show. So we've been doing every Saturday morning for 2.5 years. We've been doing a campaign.
Oh, that's awesome.
And now I'm like obsessed with it. So it's very much like what I look forward to most every week. So I wasn't into it as a kid. It wasn't that, or like Magic the Gathering or any of that was very like a tertiary ideas in my life. But recently I've gotten into it and I absolutely adore it. And it's very much like in my wheelhouse of like, if you're an improviser, it's so much fun to play D&D and just like embrace those assets.
Yeah, we like to joke that D&D is like, if you're gay or if you liked acting as a kid, you most definitely got into D&D later in life.
Absolutely.
Amanda actually does a D&D podcast, which is the only reason I brought this up, because I know you guys play a lot of D&D.
Yeah, it's called Join the Party. And we are very much trying to sound like an audio drama while having a really fun game of D&D. So we play a lot with kind of pop culture tropes. So right now we're doing an arc called Bachelorette Party, where our players find themselves in a Bachelorette style reality show for it's like win the love and affection of the leader of a city-state we've never been to before.
That's outstanding. And
yeah, before that was a pool party with like a mythology inspired big bad. So it's very fun and I like it a lot. I play like a sort of hopeless like lesbian skater teen who wants to be an assassin but is too overwhelmed by like all women to actually do much.
That old trope.
So she's great.
Yeah,
that's
really
wonderful.
Playing to my experience.
But yeah, I think that D&D definitely appeals to anyone who is either a storyteller in the acting sense or writing sense. So it makes sense that Hello from the Magic Tavern has a D&D spinoff.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and lots of improv obviously as well.
Yeah.
Do you improv kind of other places as well professionally?
Yeah, I mostly do. There's a place in Chicago called IO. It's formerly Improv Olympic, but now it's shortened IO. But I perform there weekly. I usually do Friday nights with a group called Revolver, and then Saturday nights with a group called World News Tonight. But that's sort of my home base, and I'll again like do 2 or 3 shows there a week when possible.
That's awesome.
But I used to perform elsewhere, but I think with just getting busier and busier, I kind of just whittled it down to those 2 shows I pop up in.
Yeah, that the idea of performing on a stage terrifies me. I was very much a techie in our high school theater scene and not an actor. But playing D&D has kind of made me feel a little bit more confident in my ability to react to stuff as it's being thrown at me.
Oh, that's great.
So I think they're really it's really beneficial, especially for people who might have identified as shy nerds in elementary school, which I bet a lot of podcasters and podcast listeners did. Try D&D. It can be really fun.
Absolutely. And I feel like my personality, I'm like, if I have to be on stage and be myself, that's when I get kind of shaky of like, no one wants to see or hear this idiot. But if I'm able to play a character like I do in Improv or with Magic Tavern live shows or something, it's so comfortable, and it's so like I don't even think about the audience being there. Or if I do, it's very much like this is a celebration and not like anything to be nervous about. So it's kind of incredible how quickly you can get over any amount of stage fright just by slipping into a character or just embracing the atmosphere.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of which, your most recent live show that you guys put out on Monday featured one of our good friends, Lauren Shippen, who's been on the podcast before, who is a wonderful human being.
Yeah, she's great.
She's awesome. So I think we're going to get into some actual storytelling parts now. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about your character, I guess.
Yes, please. I'll dim the lights and put a flashlight in front of my face.
Do it. Yeah, a little bit of gin and a little bit of Are You Afraid of the Dark vibes is what we're going for.
I started a campfire on my floor.
There we go. Perfect.
I literally have gin in a camping mug right now.
Dang.
So I am ready.
For our listeners who have not listened to Magic Tavern yet but should do it, pause it right now, start listening to the show, come back to us.
No, Julia,
Awesome.
Julia, don't dilute the call to action.
No,
Come on.
it's fine. So your character is Chunt, who is very often erroneously called a talking badger by the host Arnie. He's really a shapeshifter, but I'm curious if you, Adal, or you, Amanda, would be surprised if I told you that there are talking badger myths in Japanese folklore.
Well.
Are there really? I did not know that. We got lots of talking animals. Actually, not as many talking animals as fairy tales would have you believe.
Yes.
Most of the time, in at least the shapeshifters we've discussed, like the Selkie or others, they have an animal form and a human form, and there's not a lot of like talking to humans as an animal.
Well, we get a little bit of both in this story, so it's the full package here. So as we've discussed in previous episodes, Japan has the best and weirdest folklore, and that's what we love about it. So we're going to talk about the mujina, which is actually a really archaic term for just badger in Japanese. But basically, it's also used for a term for a shape-shifting yokai, which are the Japanese demons/spirits. But the mujina specifically has the form of a badger and can turn into a human.
Quick sidebar.
Yes.
We mentioned earlier the Malkin in Dresden Files. Malkin is just an old English word for cat. That's that was the word for cat before we used the word cat.
I love when we do that.
And I love in both of these examples how like this archaic term for badger, like as a different term comes into use, the oldest one becomes the spookiest one because old stuff is spooky. And I love that that is true.
I love old things. They're so creepy. That's why we love antiques and just assume that everything's haunted.
Yeah, or like anything a grandma says is spookier than anybody else. So when a grandma like uses older language to refer to something, you're like, that's not a cat, that's a haunted thing.
Oh, yeah. When my grandma used to call our couch a Davenport, I'd be like, ooh.
No.
Whoa. Anyway, okay, I'm trying
You
to
spooky
think.
witch.
My grandma calls a footstool an ottoman. I think that's pretty normal, though.
No, that's pretty on brand for grandmas.
My grandma would call couch Davenport. She called the bathroom a commode.
Ooh, my grandma does that too.
Yeah. What else would she say?
Dinner,
Your grandma
supper.
just sounds fancy as hell.
Stop wrestling.
Huh. Grandmas, man, they're the best.
Grandmas. So in their badger form, mujina tend to live in the mountains, usually away from human society. So they're known to shapeshift into three different forms. The first one is an attractive woman with a quote-unquote promiscuous nature. And once they seduce a human, they cause mischief in their partner's lives, which I feel like I might have dated a couple of those in the past. There's actually a great quote from 627 CE that states, "In 2 months of spring, there are mujina in the country of Mutsu. They turn into humans and they sing songs," which is just great.
Well,
Aw,
If
that's
you're
adorable.
gonna come across a shape shifting quasi cryptid, I suppose that's not the worst effect in the world.
Yeah, no, it really doesn't get creepy until the end of this, which is usually a
Damn
good
it.
bonus.
Now I'm thinking about what's gonna be creepy. Come on.
So in another region of Japan, Shimosa, the talking badgers are referred to as kubukiri kozo, but instead of attractive women, they transform either into small monks or little boys wearing tiny kimonos.
Oh,
Bunch of little
Little
scamps running
scamps.
around. That's adorable.
I know, you can't be suspicious of that.
So they tend to appear on less trafficked roads at night, and they sing to passerby a song that just goes, drink water, drink tea, which is just friggin' adorable.
It's not bad advice.
Yeah.
Is the idea that they would stop and drink water at the roadside or just like trying to be helpful?
They're just trying to tell people to keep hydrated and drink your 8 waters a day.
Oh, adorbs. Thank you.
If they're approached by a stranger, they run off into the dark and transform back into their animal form, which
Same.
is just cute. It's just like stranger danger.
I feel like that character is ripe for like advertising of like having a badger turn into a small boy in a kimono and being like, always Coca-Cola, like drink Coke products. And then scamping off and turning into a polar bear or
I like
something.
that. I appreciate that.
Listen, go
more
shop that
polar bear
around.
shapeshifters.
Oh, it would be so much better if the Coca-Cola polar bear were a shapeshifter.
It would be.
Also, if you've never listened to Hello from the Magic Tavern, what I might do on the show is, once you said that those badgers were called Mujina, is that what they were
Yep.
called? I would just wait for a opening for me to just reference, damn, Mujina.
Spoiler alerts
and
for
people
future
would groan.
episodes now.
People would groan and then we'd move on.
Well, here we
So
dig
that's
in.
the kind of quality product that you would expect to find on Hello from the
I
Magic Tavern.
appreciate
dig
that. Thank
into
you.
groanable lines and we do not let go.
We grasp onto them and just hold them tight. The final form that the Mujina takes is the form of a faceless human known as the Nopabarbo. No, that's not how you pronounce that word. Hold on.
Oh, no, sorry. I was noping to the idea of
I mean,
the
also it's
creature.
nope how you pronounce it, but it's Noperabo. Basically, it's just a normal human form, but they have no facial features whatsoever.
No, worst case scenario.
Yeah. This form is specifically used by the Mujina to scare humans away from their homes in the mountains. However, the Noparabo is a form that's not specific to the Mujina, and there's multiple types of yokai that can use that form.
I love that idea. It's like predators just kind of agreeing that red means like poison and danger, or rather, I guess like nature, like nature often, red stuff is poisonous to animals, and animals are like, okay, we can all agree on that one at least.
We're not going to eat
and
that.
So, yeah, and so if yokai are like, okay, listen, they have some kind of council, some kind of round table, at top of the mountain, and say to each other, all right, we really have to deal with this human problem, put aside our differences, put aside our taxation quarrels, and let's just use the most successful one, which obviously is a creepy ass faceless person.
Of course, obviously.
But then some local fox is like, but what about the zoning laws? Like, I want to make sure
Shut up, Jerry.
my den is not affected by construction. There's too much gentrification going on.
Noise ordinances,
The damn kitsune. You know how it goes.
What was the faceless human? Sounds like, did you ever watch Avatar or The Last
Yes,
Airbender, the
of
cartoon,
course.
the animated series?
Yeah.
Wasn't there some sort of like faceless shapeshifter?
Yeah, there's some sort of creature that's called the Face Stealer, if I remember correctly.
That's what it was. Yeah. I feel like that was the most terrifying character in an animated series. of
Oh,
all
it's
time.
super creepy, for sure. And I'm pretty sure that's based in actual Japanese folklore, if I remember correctly.
Okay, because most of the series you're like, oh, like look at Appa, like that's adorable. This is all very cute, and then that face stealer shows up, and you're like, everything's gone to
Yep,
hell.
everything is terrible.
Like this is like John Carpenter's The Thing come to animation.
Which is a great movie, but I don't want to watch it in my children's animation.
Of course, yes. It's like the worst Reese's peanut butter cup of like, you got your Japanese nightmare in my animation.
You got my animation and your Japanese nightmare. I'm like, both of those are bad together.
I don't know. I feel like an animated nightmare would be a lot easier to handle.
Would it be, though?
True.
I think Tim Burton has proven you wrong there.
Yeah,
Just
that,
in general.
that very well could be. Julia, you know what I love even more than drinking?
Organized spreadsheets.
I do love that a lot.
The show Lost Girl.
Oh, I love Lost Girl.
Wonderful, bisexual pins.
I have so many bisexual pins. No, Julia, I love drinking without leaving my house. It's my
Same.
favorite
Hard
part. I know that we originated spirits in bars after work, but now we're goddamn adults and we can drink in our own homes also, which is
We
why I am so grateful that this week we are sponsored by Shaker and Spoon. Tell us all about it.
Well, Shaker and Spoon is a monthly cocktail subscription box that delivers craft cocktail experience to your home. It is amazing. I just got a box, my rum box, delivered like 2 days ago. And let me tell you, oh my God. First off, the packaging is absolutely beautiful. And the way that they like send you all the ingredients, they have like little tiny like little bottles full of adorable bitters. Like I have tiki bitters for the one that I just got. It's absolutely insane.
You know what? I reuse those bottles to bring my little like essential oils on travel with me, like
Smart.
in my suitcase. It's very nice.
Yeah, and the nice part is, so each time you get a monthly box, you get 3 brand new original recipes created by world-class bartenders, and it comes with enough ingredients, so like the syrups, the bitters, the mixers, the garnishes. They make 12 cocktails, 4 of each recipe, and they're just like perfect for either get-togethers or if you're just like hanging around your house and you and your fiance both want cocktails that night, and there's a really nice like tiki-style drink there, and it's summertime and it's really hot. Like that's all you want.
It's amazing. So they send you all the stuff and then you just have to pick up the liquor. So it's nice because like I know what liquor I like, and I am kind of hesitant to like buy a thing that I'm not quite sure I'll enjoy or even how to use. So it not only teaches you how to make drinks with a specific kind of liquor, but it's also like really mindful that you don't always want to like buy a whole new bottle of something, just try one new drink. It uses 12 cocktails for one full bottle of spirits.
Right. And the nice part is like, even though the recipes are bar quality, the like instructions for them are super easy to follow. Like I made this like tiki rum gimlet basically that was inspired by Hemingway. It was really nice. But it was like so easy to make. I made 4 of them in the span of like less than 5 minutes. It was incredible.
So cool. And I hope you save at least one of those recipes for our get together this weekend, because I'm definitely going to need some to beat the heat.
Yes, of course.
Awesome. So if you want to get in on the fun and try your first box of Shaker and Spoon, you can get $20 off your first box by going to shakerandspoon.com/spirits.
And we can assure you it is absolutely worth it.
We love these folks. We partnered with them to fulfill one of our patron legend boxes last month, and it went over so well. So they are true friends, and show your support of the show by trying out Shaker and Spoon this month, shakerandspoon.com/spirits.
And let's get back to the stories. It's also mentioned in a couple of episodes that Chunt's father is a hunger ghost. Am I correct in that?
That's correct. When I mentioned that, I was just like, oh, this would be a funny idea. And then a few months after I mentioned that, people sent me articles that's like a Japanese lore.
Oh, yeah. We're going to talk about it. We're going to dive right in.
You scooped
I
yourself.
feel like in a previous life, I was a shogun or something. Like this is my subconscious is filled with so much Japanese lore. Yeah.
I like that. I was super excited to hear about that because I did know about hungry ghosts when you guys brought it up in the podcast. So hungry ghosts are basically from traditional Chinese religion, but it persisted into the adoption of Chinese Buddhism. They're known as egwai in Chinese and are distinct from the generic guai, which is a spirit of a deceased ancestor, in that they can only occur in very unfortunate circumstances, such as a whole family being killed or when a family is no longer venerating their ancestors. So there are also some traditions that say that evil deeds lead to the soul being reborn in one of 6 different realms, the lowest degrees which the soul is reborn as a hungry ghost. So these evil deeds include killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, and desire, greed, and anger and ignorance are all factors because they're motivators for people to perform these terrible deeds.
It's like the most advanced form of hangriness, which is
Yes.
you're so hungry that you're a literal vengeance ghost.
I mean, that's what's going to happen to me, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it's not off base. I think they have a point here.
So oral tradition dictates that the ghosts of ancestors can be invited back into the world of the living at certain times during the year. So they're usually hungry and ready to take whatever they can from the world of the living, especially if the spirits have not been given sufficient offerings by their living relatives. So the Hungry Ghost Festival, which is a real thing, is put on in order to honor the hungry ancestor spirits. Food and drink is put out to satisfy their needs. The gates of hell are said to open so that the hungry ghosts can seek food and entertainment. Like, it's intense. It gets real intense.
So in this lore, they're all the hungry ghosts are in hell?
Yeah. It's like one of the levels of hell, and the lowest level of hell, like the least severe level of hell, is you become a hungry ghost.
Wow.
It's so weird. I feel like if a dead relative is in hell and they come back, like, you shouldn't feed them.
I mean, they're starving.
Like,
it's like the it's like it's Tantalus. It's Tantalus in the Greek underworld. You know, he's just hungry. Give him some food.
Or is it like training a stray cat to keep coming back because they get food from you one time and then they're like, oh, great, food forever?
Exactly. It's like, you made your hell, now lie in it.
Oh man, now you're making me rethink my ghost ethics, and I don't appreciate that, Amanda.
I'm also getting very strong Spirited Away vibes, which I very much appreciate.
For sure. So traditionally, actually, relatives will burn what quote unquote hell money, which they do in order to offer to their loved ones, because that's the currency of the afterlife.
All money's hell money. # down with capitalism.
You're gonna get real down with not down with cannibalism. You're gonna get real down with capitalism in this next section, because I'm gonna tell you that in Buddha Dharma there are 3 types of hungry ghosts, and they're divided by how much money one has when they die.
Oh,
what is the conversion for hell money to dollars?
I think it's like 2.5 hell dollars to $1.
That makes sense. That
It checks out.
but what is the exchange to Bitcoin? No, I'm kidding. That's the worst level of
I refuse to do Bitcoin stuff. Sorry.
I feel like in hell, most likely in hell, the currency used is like those Bed Bath & Beyond 10%
yes,
off
that never
coupons.
expire because you're in hell.
That seems
no,
like
guys,
what hell money
it's
is to me.
cryptid currency.
Snap. That was a bad joke. It was a terrible
You know what, Julia?
joke.
Having an actual comedian on the show, I'm realizing how not funny I actually am.
I realize that every moment of every waking day.
Oh boy.
Buddha Dharma, 3 types of ghosts. So it starts with those with no wealth. And the hungry ghosts with no wealth usually have flaming mouths in which food and drink become flames and burn up. They have needle mouths, which their throats are so tiny that food cannot pass through it. Or vial mouths, where they are so decomposed they can no longer ingest anything.
Jesus.
Yeah, it's not good. Not great. The next group is those with little wealth. They are just basically able to only eat small amounts at a time. And then there are the 1% of the hungry ghosts with lots of wealth. And those are broken down into 3 sections. There's the ghost of sacrifices, and they live off the sacrifices offered by humans. The ghosts of losses, who live off lost objects from the human world. And
That's
the ghosts,
where they go.
Yeah, I know. That's those missing socks. It's a hungry ghost. And then there's the ghosts of great powers, which are also known as yakshas, and they rule over all the other hungry ghosts. And those are extremely rare because, capitalism only benefits a few.
Wow.
That's so fascinating that there's like a transferable caste system, like in the in the ghost world.
It's a little concerning, but I can't knock a religion for their setup.
Needle mouth, was that one of them?
Needle
Needle mouth or needle? I feel like that's like a insult used in like Back to the Future 2 or something.
I feel like it would be.
That's such a weird term.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, it's a very evocative image, though. Like any kind of Sisyphean myth where the thing that the person needs is the one thing that they can't have. Like that's just the like most the most essential like human story and tragedy that there is. But I would have assumed, I guess, that the ghosts that had the least in their mortal life would have had the easiest afterlife. But that is pretty fucked up that capitalism can even ruin the ethics of the afterworld.
Yep, it's bad.
What would you, if you were a needle mouth? Like, let's be honest, we're all probably Hufflepuffs, even if we don't want to admit it. If we're all needle mouths in the afterlife, like, what are we eating? Is it like Fun Dip? Like, what's?
I mean, I'd go soup probably. Like a nice broth.
Ooh. Yes, good call.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the loophole.
Yeah.
It's like, damn.
There you go.
I assume that in the afterworld, I will no longer have dietary restrictions, so I would definitely go like milkshakes all the way. Yeah, my Hulu is showing me exclusively Dairy Queen ads for like delicious Oreo milkshakes that I will never taste.
Oh,
so
buddy, I'm sorry.
That's my tragedy of Tantalus right now. But that is very much on my mind.
You would hope that your afterlife isn't also tormenting you in that way.
Yeah, or like if I can only digest a little, I don't know. But yeah, definitely liquid that can slide right on past those needles is the answer, I think.
That's the goal. What about you, Adal?
I mean, now it's soup.
Yeah.
I feel stupid for not thinking of that.
Probably
or even
it's
like
outlawed.
raw spaghetti. Like just raw spaghetti, just put it right down.
Slowly
that
pushing
needle
it down your
I'm
throat.
sorry, raw spaghetti?
Yeah.
That wouldn't slide very well.
It depends on the size and shape of your throat, I guess, as a needle throat. Ooh, that's just a gnarly imagery, and I'm not a fan. So some hungry ghosts are actually able to leave hell whenever they like, which kind of defeats the purpose of hell, but whatever. During the day, they are invisible, but they appear as ghostly figures during the nighttime. They often can be found looking through garbage and human waste in the outskirts of human cities.
Jesus.
Yeah, some are said only to be able to
raccoons.
eat corpses, and you can identify a hungry ghost by their large how do you pronounce that word, Amanda?
Distended, that's the one.
So you can tell from their large bellies and the fact that their necks, as we mentioned before, are as thin as needles.
I love these, like, it's almost like the North American Guide to Birds or something of like, you can tell a hunger ghost from the distended, where it's like if you saw one, you would not sit there long enough to be like, what markings am I looking for?
Yeah, or like it doesn't sound like there's any recourse against them. Like if you're in the presence of these ghosts, that's sort of it for you. So I don't know how like useful their taxonomy would really be.
That's actually one of my favorite jokes to make about like naturalists talking about quote unquote cryptids, like people who are like, yes, I observed the Bigfoot and he was exactly 5'6" and had hair all over his feet. And I'm just like, you didn't see him for long enough to be able to identify any of those things. But
Yeah,
okay.
you super ran out of there. Don't get me. Don't fool me.
Hungry ghosts don't exist just in China. For example, there is the Tibetan Buddhism version where hungry ghosts are known as preta, and they have, quote, mouths the size of a needle's eye. We're still really on that needle stuff. And a stomach the size of a mountain, which seems a little bit lopsided, in my opinion.
But that's, I don't know. That's tragedy for you, right? It's like comparing two things that shouldn't go together.
Yeah.
And honestly, how do you shop for shirts?
You don't. You just got to go shirtless. You got to live that life.
At that point, you're a ghost. You don't have much more to lose, let's be honest.
Yeah. Or there's a really good ghostly tailor out there that's making stuff specifically for hungry ghosts. And I'm not mad about it. It's probably a good business.
Or maybe standards of beauty in the afterlife are very different, and you really want to go for dat hourglass figure and like dat mountain stomach.
That pear shape, though.
Oh, really a triangle. Yikes.
Preta exist in their own realm, and they are said to be the metaphor for people attempting to fulfill their illusionary physical needs, which seems a little bit more on brand than the Chinese one, in my opinion, but that's just me.
Oh. Wow. Sorry, was the original myth Japanese or Chinese?
Original myth was Chinese.
Cool.
That's Tibetan. And then we're going to touch upon Japanese, which there are two types of hungry ghosts in Japan. There are the gaki, which are spirits of jealous or greedy people who have been cursed with an insatiable hunger for one particular substance or object as punishment for their vices. Usually these things are considered like particularly disgusting, such as like corpses or literal shit.
Uh-oh.
Just like we're gonna yuck a lot of yums apparently in Japan. So it's actually in modern tellings though. The hunger can be for anything. So like I don't know, like Pokemon cards. They could just want to eat all the Pokemon cards.
Gotta get them all. Gotta get them all.
Gotta catch them all and put them in my stomach. Gotta vor them all.
That is the original Pokedex, I guess. That's how you can fit all those Pokemon into one place, is you digest them.
They could have hungry eyes. They just want to observe everything.
That would be much better.
Oh, so much better. The other type of hungry ghost from Japan is called the jikaninki, which are spirits of greedy and selfish individuals, again, who are cursed after death to seek out and specifically eat human corpses. So they'll seek them out at night, eating newly dead bodies and food offerings left out for the dead, and usually they'll loot corpses for valuables, which kind of sounds like an excuse for grave robbing, but we have to tell stories in order to explain stuff. So
sounds like like one of the kind of origins of this myth could be tied in with actual grave robbing.
Yeah, for sure. So the last thing I want to talk about briefly is the Manticore, which is just like such a classic fantasy creature. You see them in D&D all the time. You see them in like a bunch of fantasy novels like Harry Potter and stuff like that. So it seems like something that we should totally talk about. And I believe in Hello from the Magic Tavern, Chunt's mother is a Manticore. All right,
that's
good.
my mommy.
I'm just so glad I can remember this kind of stuff.
What is she like? What is she like in the show?
Oh boy, we've never had anybody play her. We've had somebody play my dad. I can't even, here's the blessing and the curse of Magic Tavern is that we world build so speedily, like so quickly, that when we bring it up later on, we forget what we said.
Oh, I don't remember any of the episodes we've done, so absolutely no worries there.
Yeah, so I honestly can't remember what all I said about my mom.
Manticores are pretty terrifying creatures from medieval stories. So if your mother is terrifying in Magic Tavern and we haven't met her yet, I wouldn't be surprised. So they're actually very similar to the Egyptian Sphinx, but the Manticore is Persian in origin. It typically has the head of a human, the body of a lion, and a poisonous tail. Depending on the source, it's either a scorpion's tail or it has spines similar to porcupine quills that are poisonous. And I don't know, I particularly like the latter because I think it's kind of creepier than just the one stinger on a scorpion tail. But that's just me. I like weirdly defensive mammals.
And porcupines can puff up. They can shake their quills like a rattle and then also just like make them gigantic. And suddenly the like surface area of stuff that can hurt you is immense.
Yeah,
and they can sort of shoot those out, right?
Yeah. And actually, I'll mention the fact that the Manticore in Dungeons and Dragons has a similar appearance to what I just described. In addition to having dragon's wings, so just like make it as cool as fucking possible.
Oh, great! Why not? Make it fly.
I gotcha.
But
fly. In D&D, the Manticore's tail is that cluster of deadly spikes, and it can shoot it at foes as a ranged attack, because I love a good ranged attack.
Yikes.
The Manticore is said to eat its victims whole, using 3 rows of very sharp teeth, because 1 row is not terrifying enough.
Shark mouth.
Shark mouth.
Why not?
Yeah, if you're eating your victims whole, you're the opposite of a needle mouth.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
They
do have that huge mountain-shaped stomach, though, so it works out for
you're
everyone.
a mountain mouth. Yeah,
you could be like a bed of needles mouth. That would be a lot more efficient.
My source also wanted me to indicate that it eats its victims whole and it leaves no bones behind, which, yeah, you would assume just from the description that's true. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I guess more like, I don't know. Yes, that would be more stripping the carcass and less like eating it whole like a snake.
Yeah, exactly. So Manticore literally translates to man-eater in Middle Persian, and the English term for Manticore is borrowed from the Latin word manticora, which, I don't know, everything's Latin. So the Manticore was, because of Pliny the Elder, long considered by medieval Europeans to be an actual creature and was listed in many bestiaries and scholarly texts.
Pliny the
God
Elder.
damn it, Pliny. Pliny the Elder just gets everything wrong constantly.
Yeah, he is mentioned a lot by Dr. Sidney McElroy on Sawbones, which is a medical history podcast that we both really enjoy. And he just made shit up. Like my mental image of Pliny the Elder is just like a guy lounging like in a caftan, just like drinking wine and being like, gallstones, I don't know, those are from God, and like, who eat those grapes? They'll solve your bunions. Like just making shit up.
Got hemorrhoids? Rub some boar's shit on it. It'll be fine.
Turn around 3 times, give me tribute, and you'll be healed.
Thank you, Pliny, for that. So because the medieval Europeans thought that this was like a real creature that was worth fearing, it was on a lot of heraldry. So for instance, William Hastings had it on his heraldry, and so did the first Earl of Sussex.
Huh.
And they just all really loved the Manticore, and then everyone came to their senses like, oh, that's not real. I think they just meant a lion. They're like, oh yeah, they probably just meant a lion.
I love the realization of like, wait. Have any of us seen this shit? No. Like,
yeah,
someone's lying.
Marco Polo said he saw a unicorn once, so I guess there's unicorns.
Oh, really?
He did.
It was a rhino.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
I
Marco
guess
Polo.
in the age of skeletons and archaeology and fossils and stuff, that started to disprove things. But like Julia makes fun of me, Adal, all the time for not remembering that narwhals are real. Narwhals and unicorns are so similar. Why should one be real and one shouldn't be? Like, I don't. Come on.
Because one's a creature that lives in the sea, and the other one's a horse that has a horn on it.
Give a girl a break.
Wasn't like what people thought were mermaids were actually like manatees? Weren't those like the original?
Yeah, manatees, dugongs, those weird Amazon river dolphins.
Mm-hmm.
So many good. Oh, I saw a thing that kind of looked like a human, so we're just gonna assume it's a human with a fishtail.
Also, I had an affair. Don't worry about it. It was a mermaid. She seduced me. A siren. Goodbye.
Now our family is blessed with webbed fingers for some reason. That's a real thing that happens. Oh man. So yeah, that's my chunt mythological background story for our dear listeners.
It was wonderfully informative. You've given me so much fuel
I'm
to
so
burn
glad.
over the next year.
I
Please
can't
do.
wait to hopefully hear something in Magic Tavern from what I said. That would be great. But Adal, thank you so much for joining us. We really, really appreciate it. Is there anything that you want to plug before we go?
I mean, you mentioned Hello from the Magic Tavern. I also do a podcast with my sister called Siblings Peculiar.
Ooh.
And a story I want to tell. I recently listened to your Grandma's episode.
Thank
Aw,
you.
thanks.
which
My
was
favorite.
which was fantastic. And my I just wanted to share a story from my great grandma,
Please.
whose name was Fern Brownlee.
Great start.
And when I was a kid, she lived to be like 98 or something.
Yeah.
She was a very, very sturdy woman. And even when she passed away, she was living on her farm by herself, like mowing the lawn every day.
Wow.
But her name was Fern Brownlee, and I used to call her Grandma Brownie because I was adorable. But she used to raise Arabian horses, or like breed Arabian horses, and then she later bred and raised Cocker Spaniels. But she used to say that when she was sleeping in her farmhouse, and again, she lived, her husband died in like the 70s maybe, so she lived by herself for some time. But she used to say that she would awake in bed because she would feel one of the dogs licking, that she raised, one of the dogs licking her hand. And she would wake up and see the dog like scamper off. And then when she would fully wake up, she'd realize that she didn't keep the dogs in the house.
Oh,
Like they had
no.
their own
Whoa.
sort of kennel or whatever it was outside. So she would have like ghost dogs running around the house, which to me is like kind of terrifying.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I love it.
But they would lick her hand. Like that was like a reoccurring occurrence.
Wow.
Was that the dogs would lick her hand to wake her up, and then she'd wake up and see them scamper off into the walls or whatever. Which to me is pretty terrifying.
No, it's amazing. I love it. I love
That's pretty
terrifying things. So
awesome. Yeah, and like to be awoken by a sensation that you likely feel a lot. You know, like we feel like we're falling or being jerked awake or like our leg itches or whatever.
Yeah.
But to wake up and then have that additional element of the visual, just makes that whole scenario so much more real and so much cooler.
oh, that's
Absolutely.
great. Thank you for your grandma story. We appreciate it.
Yes, of course. I also love the story of the grandma who was awoken by the ghost of her aunt
Oh,
being like, lock the windows and doors.
Amazing.
Lock your windows. Damn it, George.
I was totally waiting for like the rug to be pulled under me from like her locking the windows and doors, and the aunt being like, "What are we, heating the neighborhood?" Like I totally thought it was just going to be like a conservative aunt kind of.
The ghost of an aunt who just wants you to cut down on electricity costs. I feel you.
Yeah.
Yeah, or like a hunger ghost that like fat shames her, cousin, like granddaughters and nieces and nephews to be like, no, stop, put that plate of food down. What's gonna happen to it? Don't worry, I'll take it. Don't worry about
Leave
it.
it out for me. It's fine. It's fine.
Do you need a baked potato?
I do.
Melissa, do you
I'm a
need a
hunger
baked
ghost.
potato?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, Adal, for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
And remember, listeners,
Stay creepy.
stay cool. Spirits was created by Amanda McLaughlin, Julia Shafini, and Eric Schneider, with music by Kevin MacLeod and visual design by Allison Wakeman.
Keep up with all things creepy and cool by following us at Spirits Podcast on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and Tumblr. We also have all of our episode transcripts, guest appearances, and merch on our website, as well as a form to send us your urban legends at spiritspodcast.com.
Join our member community on Patreon, patreon.com/spiritspodcast, for all kinds of behind-the-scenes stuff. Just $1 gets you access to audio extras with so much more available too. Recipe cards, director's commentaries, exclusive merch, and real physical gifts.
We are a founding member of Multitude, a collective of independent audio professionals. If you like Spirits, you will love the other shows that live on our website at multitude.productions.
And above all else, if you liked what you heard today, please share us with your friends. That is the very best way to help us keep on growing.
Thank you so much for listening. Till next time.